G'day everyone, it's Annette here and welcome to my channel. First of all, I wanted to apologise that my videos haven't been uploaded on a set date for the last few weeks. I've got my elderly 91-year-old frail mother who has come to live with us. It's been a huge learning curve for us, and it's involved a lot of to and froing and getting her up here and her belongings. We've just completed a 4,000 kilometre round trip in 6 days to get some of her things for her. That's around, I think, 2,840 odd mile. Anyway, I'm trying to get back into my artwork, and I've decided to challenge myself and do a resin cast, which I've never done before. I've always been a bit too nervous. I have a love of skulls and a lot of skull molds, so here I am giving it a go. I have 2 skull molds ready. This is a larger one and I've got a medium-sized one, and I'm also going to be using some little cast brains that I got from this little mold. I'm going to try and put a brain inside my skull and see if I can see it from the outside. I'm not sure if it'll work because it's a deep pour of about 10 centimeters, but I thought I might give it a try. The first thing I want to do is dust the inside of my mold, so I'm going to use this Solar Colour Dust holographic prism powder in 15U, and also some Nick Pro chameleon powder in a blue-green. I'm going to also add in some halo shred, and this shred was just from a cheap shop. So the first thing I want to do is use a soft makeup brush and put in my powders. I'm going to put the Prism Halo, the silvery coloured one, up on the skull at the back and also over the teeth, and the Nick Pro bluish coloured one in other areas. I will speed up sections as I'm really just sort of dusting it on with the brush and pushing it around. And I don't think I show it, but at the end I also tip out the excess off to the side away from where I'm working, just to make sure it's not everywhere. And look at this, isn't it gorgeous? Such a beautiful colour, that halo prism. You can see it shimmering there as I tilt my mould. When I'm happy with the coverage, I use some isopropyl alcohol sprayed on a baby wipe, and I clean up any excess powder that I can see off my mould. The resin today I'm using and throughout is platinum river table epoxy. I've mixed up about 400 ml of resin in a small cup. I'm putting in a small amount of this little pigment in velvet, poured a small amount of resin on top, and I'm stirring thoroughly. I've divided the other clear resin into 2, so I've got 2 molds. In this first one, I'm adding Resin holographic silver glitter and then pouring in that velvet mix. And then once I've stirred that up gently but thoroughly, I'm pouring it down my mixing stick into my skull mold. I'm doing this to try and decrease introducing any more bubbles. I just put this one aside while I quickly work on my second mold, and for this I'm using Let's Resin holographic glitter in gold and in pink. I've applied it the same way, and unfortunately I was off screen a little bit while I did this, but I'm using the soft makeup brush again. I've put the gold on the back of the skull and on the teeth, and the pink in the other areas. When I'm done, I'll shake out the excess and clean up the edges of my mold again. And for this one, I'm going to use this little pigment in Twinkle and some Resin holographic copper glitter. And this time I've mixed them both into the 200 ml of clear mixed resin. Stir gently to coat it all, and slowly, and then pour it again into my mold down the stick. You'll notice with both I've got my mold resting at an angle inside plastic containers, as I want the resin to be at an angle as it cures, so that I can put that cast brain in there at an angle and hopefully push it back a bit like it's the brain inside. And in both I also decided to add some of this halo shred, and I just cut off chunks of it and put it in the molds while the resin was still quite runny, and used my stirring stick and gently pushed it down underneath the resin surface. Approximately 4 hours later, I came back to put in the brain. The resin is still runny, but has thickened quite a bit, and I'm using some of this invisible thread, which I've laid down at the back of my cast brain, and then put down some UV resin, and I'm popping it underneath my UV light to cure for about 3 minutes. I chose the dark blue cast brain for my bluish coloured mould, and the gold brain for my goldy pink mould. And when they're fully cured, I place them gently into the resin inside my mould by holding the invisible thread and putting it in at an angle. Then I'm using a micro makeup brush to gently press it in where I want. I think you can see it better with this one, but I'm pushing it down at the end so that it's going to sit sort of more deeply into the back of the skull of the mould. Once the resin is cured in both moulds, I use a pair of curved nail scissors and clip off the invisible thread down close to the cured surface area. This next layer is going to be not on an angle, so I've taken them out of their plastic containers, and this layer I want to cover up the teeth area. So I've mixed up my resin again. It's the river table resin again, and for my blue skull I'm only using a bit of the TLP, or this little piggy velvet, and I've poured that in to cover the teeth area, as you can see there. And to get rid of any surface bubbles, I'm spritzing the surface of the resin with some isopropyl alcohol. Then I move on to my gold skull, and I have my resin mixed up again, clip off my threads. This is also just a layer to cover the teeth area. Unfortunately, as I tipped up my copper Larisi holographic glitter, I bumped something and a whole heap went into my clear mixed resin. So I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to see through this with a light underneath like I was hoping, but I use it anyway. It's a learning curve. So once those two layers are cured again, I mix up some more resin, and for my blue one I'm using Octopus Fluids ink in Peacock, and I'm also using some Artisu sparkle powder, just a little bit on the end of my stick, and mixing that through to give it a bit of a shimmer. Then after it's thoroughly mixed in, I also added just a tiny bit of Larisi deep blue holographic glitter as well, and then I pour it all into my mould and fill it completely up to the top. And then lastly, before I work on my gold one, I use the isopropyl alcohol, and I spritz the surface with the isopropyl alcohol to pop any surface bubbles. For my gold skull, I decided to just use plain clear mixed resin, as I'd put so much of that copper glitter into the other layer, and I fill it up to the surface. Use the isopropyl alcohol and spritz the surface again, and then I've left both to fully cure. A week has gone past now as we went down to pick up my mother's belongings, but I find that getting moulds out is easier if I put a spritz of either warmish water or isopropyl alcohol down the edges of the silicone mold, and then just sort of massage it like I'm doing here, and push that fluid around, and then it's usually pretty easy to turn the silicone over on itself and pop the resin casting out. Unfortunately, something happens in just a second, but it didn't Oh, there it goes. It didn't cause any ill effects. And oh my God, look at this shine. This is that holographic prism powder from Solar Color Dust. And it is amazing. I really love the look of that on the teeth and on the back of the skull. Just sort of looking at it like this, I can see the brain, but you can get a better glimpse of it with a light on, and I will take some more shots at the end to show you a bit better. I quite like these. I think I'll make another one and just see if I can do it a bit more transparent or translucent, so you can see the brain better, not the bone. Then it's time to remove my gold one. So I do the same thing. It's slightly smaller than that blue one. And I'm just spritzing down the side of the silicone again. I'm quite curious the difference between using the prism powder and the chameleon powders to using the holographic sort of glitter. I did notice it didn't stick as well on the mold surface. So holy goodness. Okay, hang on. Oh my God, it is gorgeous too. It's so pretty. Look at that shimmer. I can't get over this holographic shimmer and chameleon powders. As I thought, it's probably a bit too dark to see the brain with a light underneath, as you can see here. But if I put the skull on the side, you can see it. And I will do some photos after fiddling around with this one with the light on and off, both under a light and in the dark. When I did my blue skull, I had a little bit of the resin left over and I poured it into this tiny light bulb skull mould. It is quite fiddly to get out, and I don't show the whole thing, but it even though I put the isopropyl alcohol down the side and squished it a bit, it took maybe 5 minutes, not like 10 seconds like this is here. And it came out quite cute. It's got a screw-on bottom that is touch sensitive, so when you touch it the light comes on or goes off. So I will also just quickly show you what this little fella looks like in the dark. He doesn't have a brain inside, but I just thought he was so cute and sweet. And as I said before, I quite like, like sugar skulls and skull art. Not necessarily deaf, but yeah, skulls. So here he is with his light in the dark. Just turning it off. He's kind of sweet, isn't he? Yeah, I kind of like him very much. Anyway, stay tuned and I'll show you some close-up shots. So here we go. This is both of them with just the light underneath. And there is the copper one, copper gold. So you can see the brain is visible through the light, but just not from the bottom up. And the same with my blue one. I think the blue one, I probably used too much this little pigment powder, and you couldn't quite see as well as I thought. So there you go, some skull lights and my very first deep pour resin cast. So thank you everybody for watching. I hope my mistakes help somebody, and have a great day.